Hi, Mike Kennedy. I guess I'm going to start a series on getting back into Minox photography. I haven't used this for quite a long time, and I have some items that I never used that I want to use, and this is a film splitter. Normally you could buy film. This company I don't think even exists anymore. It was called 8x10film.com. And here you can see the cartridge with some film in it. And so the idea is that, first I'll mention this company new name, Blue Moon, Photography. They're a lab. They do all these things, and they sell Minox film. They're actually, I think now, an official distributor. But film costs like $20, and which is fine. But I'm going to be playing around quite a bit, so experimenting. So I want to use something less expensive, so I'm going to try splitting my own. Now, normally, what's available in Minox film at any one time isn't that much now. They usually have maybe ASA 100 and 400 black and white, and maybe a color emulsion. But see, with this, you can use any type of 35 millimeter film. They even have, I've seen people even split this, the 120 rolls. Okay, and let's look at the design of this just for the fun of it. This is basically a bunch of sheets of lucite, and it's got razor blades. So I'm going to get 2 rolls of Minox film in out of a 35 millimeter roll. So I thought, this is, as usual, I've got to learn along with me video. That means I don't know what I'm doing, and hopefully we'll learn together. Now, of course, first you're always going to practice in the light, but this activity, of course, is going to have to be done in the dark, where no light can hit the film. Normally I use a changing bag for that, which is sometimes a little cramped to do something like this, I would think. But basically what we're going to do is we are going to pull film through this cutter. Okay, we're going to have to make it a little bigger, I think, here. And we're going to come out with a length of Minox film. Now, you can look up lengths of what the film is, but in this case, for 15 exposures, it's going to be 12.9 inches, and so I'm just going to say 13 inches. So what I would do in my changing bag, of course, I would have the film, the splitter, something like I'm thinking I might have not a ruler because that's too short, but something that length so I can measure the film out and know that it's that length. Another option would be to just which might make more sense now that I'm thinking about it, is to slit the whole roll, put it into a cartridge again, into a canister. You might have trouble finding a black canister now. Now they have all of these clear ones. But putting it in a canister and then dealing with making it the appropriate lengths later. Then, too, you could even, theoretically, you could even make a 5 exposure roll if you're just testing your techniques or your camera, something like that. I have several. Well, I only have one real Minox. I've got a pretend Minox by Acmo, and I've got, you saw in the other video, unfortunately, my Minox EC doesn't work, and this appears to be a common fault that this has, is there's a diode in here and it goes bad. And it costs about $50 to have the diode changed, if they're still doing that even. There's a repairman, affectionately known as DAG. Those are his initials, DAG, and he works on things like that. So maybe in the future, I'll think about getting that repaired, depending on how some of this other stuff goes. Now, the whole Minox thing gets prohibitively expensive now if you are buying the film and sending it out to be processed. Having a 36 roll of Minox film developed and printed is going to be like over $40, because it's all a specialized size and specialized enlarging equipment and things like that. And again, Blue Moon. So anyway, let's try this. We're going to press this down, and if I make big mistakes, that's okay because we're learning. There. Let's see. Let's keep going so we get it about a foot length. Okay, of course we were going to have scissors with us. Let's get some scissors. So, then we would cut this at the appropriate length. We're going to cut it up here so we have some to pull. Now, of course, this film isn't going to be used. It's just going to be film to practice with. Then, like I say, we could we cut it back over here. Now, all of a sudden, we're discarding the edges with the perf holes. Don't want to put those in. And there we have what would be a 15 exposure roll of Minox film. The edges are a little rough, but that doesn't look too bad. And you know, I used to work in a photo finishing plant, and so you got to always be aware of scratches. And that's one problem with a lot of people loading their own film is the number of scratches. So typically how you look at scratches easily is you reflect the light so that you see some your light in the surface of the film. Here I'm looking at the back and I see no scratches. Likewise, looking here, there might have been one here. There might be one scratch on this. But again, practice. So, just to show you, and I've recommended the site before, and I'll tell you, it's hit or miss sometimes. The site is called subclub.org. It's run by this man, and he's the one that has the Goat Hill photograph, where he actually sells slit film already. He has a number of different emulsions you can get. And but I wanted to mention about the page, the site, subclub.org, sometimes seems to disappear. I'll mention it to someone, they'll go and check it, and it won't be there. So I'm going to say just check back, because I don't know whether it's on a personal server or what, but every once in a while the site completely disappears, and then you go back and you'll find it again later. So next we're going to look at how to actually load a Minox cassette. You know, one of the things I was thinking for film that I'd like to try is, number one, a super slow film, because the slower the film, the finer the grain, usually. Some people go to the trouble of microfilm and using a developer that returns high contrast microfilm back to a normal range of tones. Now, if you were SPY doing document copying, you would use, most likely, you'd have one of the higher contrast films, and you would develop it in a higher contrast developer, and that would be, basically, you'd end up with black and white line drawing of what you photograph, which would be type and diagrams of the, the secret inventions that Telsa has stored it somewhere that people are always talking about. So, but there we go. There's just a quick thing, my first try on splitting some film. Seems very easy to do, but the problem, again, I guess, is to do it all in the dark, to have the proper size, length, and you can do, depending on, there's a take-up spool in these, and depending on the size of that take-up spool, you could actually load 50 exposures into this, although more commonly people just do 15 or 36. So I don't even know whether, if you were to get a modern cassette, whether it would have that smaller core in it so that you could wind more exposures on it. But you could do 50 exposures, and I just read something again. I've been looking at Minoxes and things, and I'm saying, again, they caught this SPY somewhere, and he had 700 exposures of material that I guess he wasn't supposed to pass on, and it was all taken with something like a Minox B, and that particular person had 50 exposure films. It's interesting, too, I get sidetracked, but I got to tell a story. Evidently, since this is a camera that spies use, there have been people, I don't know if this would happen now, but there have been people who have been detained as spies because they crossed the border into China with one of these things. Because why would you have one unless you were a spy? And why you would have one if you weren't a spy is because they're extremely light, portable, and, let's face it, they're fun to use. Why, most people have, a phone on their camera. Why are you going to do this? Well, there's a certain satisfaction in going back into film and using something like this. It's just a mechanical marvel. But it's just interesting that people, have run into even facing maybe prison terms because they brought this country across into a communist country, and that has been seen as some kind of espionage act, just even having the camera with them.